Your news bulletin from Power 102 Digital.
It is Tuesday, 28th November 2023. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. This is News to 6 a.m. on News Power Digital. The opposition United National Congress leader Kamala Prasad-Bissessar revealed yesterday that National Transformation Alliance leader Gary Griffith had put his inclusion on the opposition's team for crime talks on hold, and she's now calling on Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley to lead the government's team for discussions. Prasad-Bissessar said Griffith did so since he does not want to be a scapegoat as the reason for the talks to be scuttled. Prasad-Bissessar said, quote, hopefully Mr. Griffith's non-attendance will now assuage the fears and insecurities of the Prime Minister, who will now reconsider his refusal to attend the proposed talks. NTA political leader Gary Griffith yesterday issued a statement saying, he's a patriot first, who always puts country above everything else, and that's why after consultations with Prasad-Bissessar, he withdrew from inclusion in the proposed crime talks between the government and the opposition. Griffith in the release earlier claimed it was clear that, quote, Rowley, fueled by bitterness and rage, or maybe simply being intimidated to face me, were prepared to use my inclusion as an excuse, falsely depicting it as a deal breaker. It's now hoped that maturity takes precedence over emotion, and he not only agrees to the terms of the talks, but also attends to lead his team. Prasad-Bissessar, while reiterating the opposition's willingness to participate in the talks, also reinforced her call for broadening the scope and agenda of the discussions. The government, meanwhile, earlier announced a ministerial team for talks, including Minister of National Security Fitzgerald Hines, Minister of Public Administration Marvin Gonzalez, Minister of Tourism Randall Mitchell, and Minister of Energy Stuart Young, with the Attorney General, Reginald Lamour Senior Counsel, convening the discussions. Meanwhile, criminologist Randy C. Prasad is cautioning anti-crime talks between government and the opposition is not turned into just a talk shop. The coordinator of the criminal unit at UWI St. Augustine campus made the comments while being interviewed on the afternoon power drive yesterday. Dr. C. Prasad is suggesting stakeholder involvement should be included in the process in order to get their input and contribution. There is a view that lessons should be learned from the closure of Petrotrin and adjustments made to ensure negatives can be turned into positives to create better governance for oil and gas sector and maintain transparency and accountability. This is a view expressed by Energy Policy and Strategic Advisor Anthony Paul. He made comments on the online symposium held Monday by the Oilfield Workers Trade Union. It was held to mark the 5th year anniversary of the closure of the state-owned company Petrotrin and the sending home of the workers. It said it will be good to find out how the communities in and around Pointe-a-Pierre are coping following the closure of the state-owned entity. This according to economist attached to UWI St. Augustine campus, Dr. Marlene Atz. Dr. Atz took note of the socio-economic impact of the closure of the fence-line communities, which will have enjoyed a level of sustainability and livelihood from the refinery's operations. She also said Trinidad and Tobago cannot withstand the economic impact of shutting down another state-owned enterprise like former Petrotrin oil refinery. In news of the region, Jamaicans for Justice are urging the police hierarchy to provide a thorough account of a video circulating on social media showing an 11-year-old student being pinned to the ground by a police officer. According to the JFJ, the incident happened during a routine traffic stop in St. Mary's. Executive Director Michael Jackson said, while there is no official account of what triggered the response, it is clear the responding officer resorted to a shocking use of excessive force against a minor. The 11-year-old was allegedly pepper sprayed, thrown to the ground, knelt on by an officer, and refused water to alleviate some of the pain endured during the encounter. And internationally, officials have confirmed an outbreak of bird flu has killed 220 flamingos in northwestern Argentina. The dead birds are of the James flamingo species, which lives at high altitudes in Argentina, Bolivia, Chile, and Peru. The H5N1 strain of the avian flu, currently spreading through South America, can infect an entire flock within just days. And that is news to 6 a.m. right here on News Power Digital. We'll have major news coming your way at 7 a.m. Good morning.
Up to date and credible. Power 102 Digital.
I believe that without legislation in Trinidad and Tobago, pretty much nothing gets done. And when it comes to people with disabilities, legislation will assist in by way of education and especially employment.
It's after the hour at 6 o'clock on this, the 28th day of November. Good morning to you. Of course, you know what that means. It is 27 days to Christmas. It is 27 days to Christmas. It's right around the corner. Yeah, it's right around the corner. But thank you so much for joining us. Of course, this morning is the hours on. We just heard from Paul Richards. We'll hear from Richard Raghubaran. We got Ruben in the background. My name is Steve Khan. Let's get straight into it. Let's get into the WTs, see what's happening, weather and traffic wise. All right. Let's see. Hellos. On the Valencia stretch, heading towards the bypass, you got some traffic there going through Santa Rosa, Trin City towards UE, and then from the interchange into Port of Spain, it is a little bit of volume. Head down to San Fernando, see what's going on down there. I got nothing to tell you about in San Fernando. Rivulet Road is not too bad. You will pick up your traffic this morning from Chase Village towards Sugar Gorners. That main road is a bit busy already. And of course, you'll step on your brake by Charlieville as you move slowly towards the interchange northbound. All right, out to the west, I got nothing but building up in Maraval. Let's see what our weather is going to be like and check some temps. It is 26 degrees on Twin Island Republic, 26 degrees on both islands. And let's see what the weather is going to be like for today. They have not updated their weather, so as soon as I get that, I'll let you know. All right. Of course, it's a chilly one in Toronto. It's -4. -4. Miami, you're at 17. Orlando, 11. New York, you're at zilch, nada, 0. And Claire, Atlanta, you're at 2. It's a chilly one for you guys. London, you're also chilly at 5. Tampa, 11. Washington at 0 and partly cloudy. Of course, I listen out in LA. It is 13 degrees. Wow, it's a chilly one. All right, let's use Sanders hellos this morning via Facebook and YouTube. Let's check it out. Anthony Tinto, good morning to you. He says it's -5 at home today. Okay. Oliver Manwarren, good morning. Iwat Rajpal, Carol Guevara, Marcia Rock, good morning. Carol Joseph, Wendy Ann James, Dennis Bassad, Ray out in West Palm Beach, Florida. Good morning to you. Boy Bedesi, good morning. Wayne B. in Common, Georgia. Gloria Gray, good morning to you guys. Hope you guys had a great one. Let's head across the pond. Good morning. Good morning to you, Michael. Hope all is well. I got Chris Toussaint saying good morning. I don't know who this is. Okay, don't know who that is. And I've got, and that's it via WhatsApp at 318-1021. All right. So let me say good morning, going on to Paul Richards. Good morning to you.
Morning, Steve Khan. Good morning, everyone.
Morning, pal. How you doing?
I thought it was Christmas Eve for some reason.
You feel Christmassy?
I thought it was Christmas Eve. But it's not.
You thought it was Christmas Eve?
I don't know why I thought it was. I got this month it was Christmas Eve. I don't know why. That's very strange.
You rail rushing it. You had to be 27 days. You're 27 days in the future. That's what's happening.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Christmas. Merry Christmas to you. Season's greetings.
When
is Hanukkah? Hanukkah is supposed to be coming up soon again?
Yeah.
You wish them pretty often. Let me see. When is Hanukkah coming up? Hanukkah 2023, December 7th to December 15th.
Yeah.
So that's coming up just now.
Yeah, the evening of December 7th, that's where they light their first candle. And of course, it ends on December 15th.
Yeah. So good morning, everyone. Good morning to Gary Griffith.
Yeah. Still celebrating his birthday.
But it'll be interesting to see as he has sent a release yesterday indicating he's withdrawing his participation from inclusion in the crime talks. The proposed, I'll say the proposed crime talks because they're not crime talk yet. And now, this clears the way. We hope, well, I hope, for Dr. Rodley, the Prime Minister, to participate with the opposition.
Mm-hmm.
I sent somebody yesterday, good morning, Alex, that I think it would be tragic if the government and the opposition can't find a way to get these crime talks off the ground. I actually told the person that I thought that the Prime Minister should have extended an invitation to have a one-on-one meeting with the opposition leader alone first to discuss the terms of the crime talks, and then they both come out and make a joint statement.
Makes sense.
Sending to other members of their both parties and move forward with the talks and hopefully get some common ground. But when I saw Gary Griffith yesterday say that he withdrew, which was, I think, the main reason, by my understanding, by the Prime Minister's statements, that he would not participate, quote unquote, knowing what I know about Gary Griffith, I wouldn't participate. That's what he said. He wouldn't participate. So now this clears the way for Dr. Rodley to lead his team in the talks.
Yeah.
And reconsider his position of letting the Attorney General lead the government's team. So, ball now in your court, Dr. Rodley.
Yeah.
Because I really think that, and I've said it over and over, that it would not be in the best interest for the Prime Minister, who is the head of the national, who is the executive leader of the country. He is the CEO of the country, right? To lead, and he's the head of the National Security Council, to lead these talks. I don't care how much minister you have. I don't, this is not casting any shade at their competence, but I think it is such an important issue it's the most important issue in the country right now. And the Prime Minister should be leading these courts. So now, to me, the main reason that Dr. Rodley said he would not participate is no longer an issue. Let's see what happens moving forward.
Let's see.
Because
It's been
it's
2.5 months, I think.
But it's like everything else, the Prime Minister is taking lead in the energy negotiations in some instances, or facilitating energy negotiations, I should say, because I wasn't there, I don't know. And several other major issues in the country. There's nothing more serious facing the country than the crime scourge. Nothing. You can't enjoy the money or the revenues if you're dead, you know.
Can't take it with you.
But you can't, there's nothing you can enjoy in the country, no right or freedom if you're dead. It is the most important and critical issue facing the country. So I don't think you can have discussions between the two major players in terms of governance without the leader of the ruling party, without the executive head of the country, the Prime Minister. You can have it, but I mean, what kind of signal does it send? You know, okay, so let the others talk and they'll come back and report to me. So we'll see how it goes.
We'll see. It better happen quickly. I say kudos to the TDPS as well this morning as we talk a bit about crime talks. Remember that shooting that was on Movie Town on the 19th of November? Remember that? They've actually arrested someone for that and charged them with murder.
Okay, well, good stuff.
Someone from the Cocorite area. So kudos to TDPS, and that incident happened in 19, and they arrested the chap on the 21st. So, yeah.
So well, if he's been charged with murder, it means the DPP has found enough evidence has been provided to allow them to approve the laying of charges, particularly for murder. Yeah. So we'll see how it goes.
We'll see how it goes. But
But they charged 5-6 officers somewhere there, and then things happened, and the men have been exonerated. Sip of coffee.
yeah, rub that in my eye. I made coffee this morning. I forgot it home.
Dr. Marlene, there was a symposium yesterday under the auspices of the OWTU, which focused on the 5-year anniversary of the closing of Petrotrin and its impact on fence-line communities. And Dr. Marlene said Trinidad and Tobago cannot withstand the economic impact of shutting down another state-owned enterprise like former Petrotrin. She was among the panelists calling for an independent study into the economic impact of some 7,000 former workers and their families when Petrotrin was closed in 2018, and the loss of income and the subsequent impact of that on communities around. And we can't pretend there was no impact. 7,000 is a lot of people. And I'm sure some of those have been reabsorbed into heritage and paria, etc. But I know it's not 7,000. Okay, so
is it Paris? Is it tomorrow that they're going to meet at 2 p.m.?
29th, yes, I think so.
Tomorrow, yes. Tomorrow at 2.
Because the final document is due on November 30th. Due to be presented to Her Excellency the President on November 30th. And King's Counsel, what's his name? Avril Friend.
Mr. Lynch, Chairman Lynch.
Mr. Lynch. King's Counsel said he will not be needing another extension, so they will hold a 2-hour session online tomorrow to get anybody who wants to say anything as a last opportunity, and then they will present their report to Her Excellency the President. I don't know what will come of it, but
I don't know.
On a shelf somewhere.
Getting cobweb dust.
As many of the commissions of inquiry into several issues in this country.
Yeah, the millions were spent.
And we will probably get very few lessons, if any at all, out of it. And yeah. But I think it was important to be done, nonetheless. Because that was a real tragedy. I mean, a really significant tragedy. Right? And we'll see. Many of the panelists said it was a mistake to close down Petrotrin. The government has another perspective, saying that the debt of the state due to Petrotrin was like a lynch around our collective necks. So they made the decision to shut it down. And the rest is now history. You know? When you think we have problems in Trinidad, let's just go up the islands a bit now.
All right.
In Jamaica.
Yeah,
in
man.
Jamaica.
Yeah, man.
The police are under fire. And an investigation is being sought when a video went viral on social media showing police pinning an 11-year-old student to the ground. The student was allegedly pepper sprayed, thrown on the ground, knelt on by an officer, and refused water to alleviate the pain endured due to the pepper spray.
Boy.
Yeah. No, wow. I don't know. An 11-year-old is not a particularly, it has some big 11-year-olds there, but I ain't see a big enough 11-year-old to deserve that kind of treatment, to be restrained.
11-year-old.
Okay. So information is still sketchy, but those are the accusations being hurled around in Jamaica regarding what is being described as police excessive use of force, particularly against a minor. The Jamaican government has not issued any statements yet, but we wait with bated breath to see what comes out of that. Because if the allegations are true, how will it justify that, though?
Yeah.
I mean, we put something lie down on the ground and thing and tell them, say, sorry, uncle. Sorry, uncle.
George Floyd died because somebody was kneeling on his neck. What his name? I can't remember his name, but he's incarcerated right now. And actually, last week he was stabbed. Got in an altercation with an individual, and he was stabbed. He survived, but he was stabbed. So now Jamaica comes and same officer does the same thing. How can you pepper spray 11-year-old, throw him on the ground, refuse water to wash his?
I mean, an 11-year-old is an 11-year-old. That's just finishing
minor.
primary school.
It's a minor.
That's just finishing primary school. How big and how powerful this 11-year-old can be for you to feel that pepper spray, throw on the ground, knee on back, and then when the child asking for water, according to the reports, you're saying no? Okay. A different kind of beast boy. Yeah, them is different anyway. Like maybe it's a law enforcement training thing, you know, maybe it's that morning regobassing.
Morning, guys, and morning to our listeners, wherever you are. Listeners/viewers.
We were talking early on about, now that you've joined us, about the fact that Mr. Griffith has withdrawn his participation in the proposed crime talks, clearing the way now for Dr. Rowley to participate and lead his team. I think that should be the subject of our question this morning, actually.
Yeah.
Should Dr. Rowley, the Prime Minister, reconsider and lead the government's team in the proposed crime talks?
Well, assuming that his reluctance.
No, but Dr. Rowley said last week in the press conference that I must sit down opposite him when I know what I know about him, and I can't tell you all because it's been injuncted. So which means that's the reason, the main reason the Prime Minister implied that he was not going to participate was because Guy Griffith was going to be there. And he will not sit opposite Guy Griffith knowing what he knew about him that he couldn't share with the public. So if that is the main, wow, Richard, that t-shirt though, telling. Oh my God. I love it though. Take one. I love that t-shirt. That t-shirt is very impressive. That t-shirt is raise up a little bit, not see the t-shirt. The whole Republic. I love that t-shirt. Where you get that t-shirt? I mean, it's a clothing brand, that's so?
It's a clothing brand.
Yeah, but I mean, if I walk around with that, I'll get in trouble.
Yeah, you can't. That.
I will get in trouble. But I mean, I'll be able to defend it. But that's a real hot. That's a nice t-shirt. Banana Republic. Why did I make that segue? Anyway, back to the topic at hand.
Because it seemed as if Dr. Rowley, in his, I don't want to say reluctance, I want to say his decision not to sit in the crime talks, was that he felt it was competently led by his AG and the team that the government had put forward for the crime talk.
That's before last week, but last week you didn't see the press conference.
No,
in the press conference, he specifically said, I will not sit down opposite him knowing what I know about him, that I've been injuncted from sharing with you through the parliament. You understand? So it seemed from that presentation from Dr. Rowley at the press conference that Gary Griffith was the main reason, maybe one of the, but the main reason that he was not willing to participate when Mrs. Pasabi-Sessa indicated that Gary Griffith would be part of the UNC's team. You know? So let's see what happens now. I think that there's nothing stopping. And as I said earlier on before you came on, I don't think anything else is as pressing in the country. Nothing else is as important in the country but crime.
Nothing.
Because if you could generate all the revenue you want, if people dying and getting killed, and you can't hold the criminals and then stuff like that, it makes no sense. You can't enjoy it, nothing if you're dead.
Yeah. I see a viral video said TDPS pulled over a vehicle and took 4 individuals into custody. That went viral yesterday up in the Trinity area.
Why did it go viral? Was there a reason?
I got it like a million times yesterday.
But what was in the video that made it go viral?
The arrest. Taking them out to the car and arresting them and putting them in the police cars and driving off. I don't know what I tried to...
That went viral?
Yeah, I got it.
Mundane as that?
Yeah. Let me see if I find it. Send it for
Anyway.
you.
In one of the papers, the Express this morning, the Express covered a question I raised in the motion for the adjournment last week, Friday, where I called on the Banking Association and the Minister of Finance to have a conversation with the central bank about protecting customers more in light of the incidents of robbery.
Yeah, after we'll go to the bank.
After people go to the bank and sometimes when they leave ATMs. And my constraint was that while the only thing I saw from the Bankers Association was that customers should be more vigilant. You understand? And I think we read out that when they sent it out in the morning. And they should be more vigilant when they go into and leaving the banks and the ATMs. And I think that that is just not enough because of the disquiet in the public domain regarding allegations, and I stress allegations and speculation, that bank employees may be giving information to criminals. And I stress may, and that a thorough investigation should be carried out by the banks/bankers association to either confirm or refute these suspicions in the public domain.
I think that
Am I crazy to ask for that?
No, I mean, that has been in the public domain that people have been speculating.
Mhm.
Well, and that's fine. Speculation is fine, but I think it's the responsibility of the banking fraternity because of how much people have been speculating about, and we stress speculating because we have no evidence that it is true.
Yeah.
But certainly there's been a concern in the public domain given the fact that particularly elderly people who withdraw large sums of cash have been held up either immediately upon leaving the bank or closing in on their homes.
Yeah.
You understand?
Followed home.
On not one, two, or three, but several instances.
Mhm.
And the Bankers Association's response and the bank's response has been to be more vigilant. And I just don't think that's enough. If they have carried out investigations, they certainly haven't shared that with the public that I have seen.
No, they haven't.
Exactly. And I think it's wrong. I think the banks, the customers are the reason why you can post your billion-dollar profits. And there's nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong. I'm not anti-bank. You understand?
Mhm.
Banks are critical to the economy in Trinidad and Tobago, and they do a lot in terms of the economic growth and economic activity in the country. Nothing wrong with that. But I think when people are held up at gunpoint, and it's happened so many times, the banks have a greater responsibility than just be vigilant. Be vigilant, yes, absolutely. But you do your part too. Investigate these allegations. And if you have already, come to the public and say, we have investigated these allegations at many of the major banks and not found evidence to support that. Look, last week I went to the bank and I thought it was a policy here that given what was happening, that employees can't have their cell phones at their sides or while they're working. But I understand it's a policy. And I saw one with a cell phone. So I was like, okay. You understand?
Yeah.
Because my understanding is that you can't have your cell phone when you're attending the customers as a teller or any of the frontline services, you know. And even if you can't have your cell phone on you, and I'm not, and again, that's why I want the investigation to be carried out. There's nothing stopping you from stopping an errant teller from saying after the deal with a customer, saying, well, they don't take another customer, walk to the bathroom, pull out their phone, and send a message if that is what they're doing. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
The banks need to investigate this and be transparent to the public about it. Because Christmas coming, you know. Christmas is here, sorry.
Christmas, I'm going to say that.
And people are going to be using banks more.
Well, ATM certainly a lot more.
Christmas has a heightened economic activity domestically.
Mm-hmm.
I raise it because I just don't think be vigilant is enough. And I think the Bankers Association needs to lead this, and the central bank, as the regulator, needs to step into the equation. Come on. Be vigilant is not enough. Anyway, that's my little rant there. So.
You'll be right. Christmas is upon us.
Yeah.
Has the Bankers Association responded as yet?
No. But I'm glad that the Express picked it up yesterday, because I knew there was a lot of other stuff on Friday that would have taken precedence in the media from the actual debate the day and the information about the police numbers and the information about the education numbers that were laid in terms of reports. So there was a lot happening in the parliament on Friday. So I guess they got around to it by Monday, which I think I'm happy that Anna Ramdas wrote about it and the Express carried it. And one of the newspaper called me yesterday about it. But I said, it's all online, so I really have nothing more to say, you know. I was also supposed to raise something, but there was a little confusion about the reduction of teller services at most of the banks, which I think is really horrible too, particularly and pushing people online because there are people in rural communities, elderly people who don't have devices and no Wi-Fi, who are being marginalized by the banks by not having those teller services. I also think that is wrong. You know,
I agree with you totally, Paul. There are a lot
while
of
I
people.
understand the move to go quote unquote cashless
The
and go
banks
online,
obviously are trying to get you out of the bank.
but it can be absolute.
Yeah, they're trying to get you out of the banks.
It can be absolute. I went to Scotia to pay some money to a vendor, and they told me at the counter, we don't do that at the counter anymore. I said, can I pay to the ATM? No, you have to go online. You know I have a computer?
Yeah.
I asked the young lady, I said, sweetheart, this is the director at you, but to your bosses. I said, why you open the bank? Why you open the doors there? Why the bank open? If we can't deal with people in here, why the bank open? Or we could come in to ask for loans. That's why the door open.
That's why the door is open.
That's why the door open to come in to ask for loans.
Yeah.
And mortgages alone. So normal teller services don't really matter. Go online. I said, thank you very much. And that pissed me off. I can't even pay it in an ATM. Why? Why I can't put the person account number on the envelope? Put the money in the envelope and put it here, because that means that they have to do some work too.
Yeah. Put the account number, get the person's account number, put their name.
I mean, I know the banks are about efficiency and maximizing profit, and there's nothing wrong with that. You're in business to make money, but you're also in business as part of a service to a wider community and a diverse community. Not everybody have computer and internet.
I know how to use it.
Really, banks? Really? So if you have computer and internet, you can't do basic things anymore. You had tough luck for you. Hard luck for you. Or if you're elderly and you have to have somebody at your side to help you, you can't be independent and have a banking interface. That's what you're saying. That's what you're saying, right? I elderly, you know.
That we do.
We know that
But,
for sure. We can see it.
But to me, in a situation like that, the teller should just do the transaction.
No, the teller couldn't. The teller told me, I would love to help you, but I can't. I'll get into trouble.
Yeah. And not even
I can tell the young woman. I mean, she said, I want to help you, but the supervisor will get into trouble because of policy.
And even if you ask for a supervisor, they still can't do it.
The supervisor will tell you the same thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think it's wrong.
Then
I understand.
They should have a kiosk. Then they should have a kiosk of some sort in the bank that they say, well, you can use our kiosk to complete a transaction. If you need assistance doing it online, we can assist you with that.
There were kiosks, but I didn't see computers by the kiosks.
Yeah.
There were some little cubicles, but it looked like that is to go and ask for the loan.
Yeah. But to me, that's what you should do.
That's an option, to have the kiosk in the bank and have people be able to use computers in the bank.
Oh,
you can ask for assistance, which is a good idea, Richard.
Yeah.
You understand?
It facilitates, if you can't do it at the counter,
or if you're having trouble,
the transaction can be done, and they can assist you with the transaction there, so that you become more savvy about how to do it.
But then it will be defeating the purposes, I think, that they're trying to do, which is eliminate that cost of that employee doing that.
Yeah, but in any case, you still have you obviously you're still transitioning, and it's about a customer service. You make
It's about
millions in
customer
profit.
service
You're
and a
making millions in
diverse
profit. So it always should be
range
about the customer.
and a diverse range of customers. Not every customer is the same.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
diverse range. Yeah.
And
Yeah, and
you
there's
may
no
have
fifth way
somebody who
about it.
usually you may have somebody who usually does it on their phone, but their phone may be in for repairs for some reason. Whatever, life. Your phone got stolen, your phone fell down in water and spoiled, whatever, and you need to
Or
do
you
this
don't have a phone,
transaction, and you have
or
to, and
you don't have a phone that has that capability.
I know, but what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying is you may be somebody who usually does it, but exceptional circumstances have occurred, but you still need to, life still moves on.
And I may be someone who does not have a phone that has those capabilities. What am I to do? Not do banking services? Not access banking services?
No.
You understand? Please.
But even if you use online, gentlemen, I've used online to pay one particular bill, which I've been doing for years. And all of a sudden, my service was cut. And when I called to say, why is this cut? Or because non-payment of bill. But I've been paying the bills. And I
Remember,
pulled up.
you better pay it $48 before, because that transition
No,
period between you paying it to the point and it reaching
but
the
that's it.
institution.
No, I always try to keep my bills 1 month in credit. And all of a sudden it was like this. And I had to pull up. And when I pay bills, I go through the bank so I can pull up a statement. And I had to pull up everything and email it to them. And I said, look, it was paid. All these dates. And then they had to go in, and it took like a month to figure out where it went. And then they called me back.
Everything is a machine now. You can't talk to a human anymore.
Yeah.
So they could save some money. Anyway, I hope that we digressed from one banking issue to the other, but I hope the banks investigate thoroughly those allegations or those suspicions or those speculations that there are particular bank employees who may or may not be passing information to criminals, putting their clients at risk. Okay? I said may or may not. But because there's speculation in the public domain means you're supposed to investigate it to rule it out. Or Christmas is here. Okay? And you know what happens. Okay? You have papers, Honorable Singh?
I certainly do.
Can you share with us?
Absolutely. So I can start with the Daily Express. I just wanted to say, did Steve say good morning to all of our people commenting this morning already?
Not all, no.
Yeah, so I know like
Yeah, right.
Anthony
Yeah, hold on,
Tutu, Oliver Manwaring, Ewart Ratchpole, all of you, good morning. Carol Guevara says good morning, guys. Marcia Rock, good morning, gentlemen. Have a blessed day. Carol Joseph, good morning, gentlemen. Wendy Ann James, Dennis Prasad, Ray, good morning, Ray. Boy Badesi, good morning. Wayne B, good morning, guys. And from Covington, Georgia, Gloria Gray, good morning, gentlemen. Rena Jennings, good morning, guys. Doreen Pierre, good morning. A. Corey, is it Gilks, says something about Petrotrin. Did we talk? There's all touch on Petrotrin this
There
morning.
was a symposium yesterday, the 5th anniversary of the closure of Petrotrin. Dr. Marlene Atz and several others were on the panel, and they spoke about the impact of the closure of Petrotrin and the 7,000 employees on the fence line communities. And that's why people are talking about Petrotrin.
Oh, so he said, well, absolute rubbish. Petrotrin was shown to be a net earner of foreign exchange, and none of the reports even suggested the closure. This is driven by other more insidious imperatives stemming from most likely foreign multinational corporations and geopolitics. That's what he had to say. CPT Singh says, good morning. Mogain says, good morning, gentlemen. The police officer name is Derek Chauvin.
Yeah.
He's recovering. Mrs. R, well, DS Lip Celeste, and they were one kind again, Paul. I'm not so sure what she's talking about. Good morning, by the way, guys. She also says, Shuin Ka, good morning to the team. Have a good one. Donna Lee Ling. Says, good morning. I once asked a bank employee about this change at their branch, expressed that a lot of senior persons cannot go online. She had the audacity to say they will just have to learn.
Yeah, that's the attitude.
How sad. And CPT Singh says, Paul, I disagree. Pay a bill online. And Richard
You
Duke
pay a
is
bill how you want, I pay my bill how I want. You can't tell me how to pay my bill.
Good morning, guys. So that's all of the people. See, I said a good morning to every single one of you in the comment section on the YouTube sheet.
Good
All right,
morning,
let me move straight to the newspapers. Daily Express for today. And just in case you didn't know, today is Tuesday, November 28th. Gary steps aside. That's the headline that the Daily Express went with. Former top cop walks away from government opposition anti-crime talks. WPC robbed of gun. And there is a picture of the Sandfest King and Queen, and that's the main picture on the front page of the Daily Express. I know it has been City Month this month in San Fernando. And on the back page of the Daily Express, door still open, Furlong hopeful Bravo will pay in 4-day series. That's the main story on the back page of the Express. Puran and Narayan retained by IPL franchises, and cottagers tame wolves. That's the main picture. So that's the front and back of the Daily Express. Moving on to the Newsday today, Trinidad and Tobago Newsday. Main headline, Griffith out of crime talks, way clear for government and opposition collaboration. Mayaro arsonist dies in prison. So that's a suicide, alleged suicide that took place in the prison system. And the main picture is of tea time. Palestinians cook outside amid the destruction caused by the Israeli strikes. So some level of normalcy amid the apocalyptic background of the destruction all around them. You know, a family sits having tea. Striking photograph. And on the back page of the Newsday today, Intercol glory for 5 Rivers. San Juan North lose Girls East final on penalties. CWI to revamp franchise system. So that's the front and back. And the main picture is that of the 5 Rivers Secondary School footballers as they celebrate. So that's the front and back of the Newsday today. And on the final daily newspaper today, the Trinidad and Tobago Guardian, what's their headline? Everybody went with the same headline, basically. Gary's out. NTA leader to stay away from anti-crime talks. Kamala hopes PM Rowley will now take part. Also calls for broader scope to discussions. Calls for more signage at site of deadly crash. That's also a subheadline. 80-foot Christmas tree lights up. This is where businessman Wayne Alley turned on the lights to his 80-foot Christmas tree.
Yeah, I saw that. I want to go and see it.
At his St. Joseph Village, San Fernando home on Saturday. The tree is said to carry 18,000 light bulbs.
Wow.
Ali is welcoming families to view the attraction. That must be wonderful to see.
Yeah.
And cops hunt 2 suspects in licensing arson attack. All of that is on the front page. And on the back page of the Trinidad and Tobago Guardian today, Thorne leads West Indies Academy to victory. And the main picture is that of TNT's Josiah Walkins as he pins down Venezuelan Guillermo Salazar and unleashes a number of punches during the Caribbean Ultimate First Fight, the acronym CUF Championships Pro Match at the Eastern Regional Indoor Sporting Arena in Tagarigua on Saturday. Williams, won the fight. Well, it looked like he was winning the fight from the picture. And that's it for the front and back of the 3 dailies this morning.
All right. Let's say good morning going out to Gloria Gray, Rena Booty Jennings, D. Pierre, good morning to you. Corey Jilks, good morning. CPT Singh, Mogins, good morning. Mrs. R. Shuin Kud, Donna Leeling, CPT Singh, Richard Duku, Pearl Cordis, good morning. And Dan Raj, who sent me a message on WhatsApp, good morning to you as well. All right, take a quick break, come back with this morning's poll.
Persons with disabilities should have the same rights and access to services and opportunities as every other citizen in Trinidad and Tobago, but they do not, and it's time for change.
The Law Association of Trinidad Tobago's Subcommittee on Human Rights Working Group on Disability Rights is hosting a series of consultations titled Law and Disability Rights.
Saturday, 25th November, Naparima Girls Auditorium, San Fernando.
And Saturday, 2nd December, Hillview College Auditorium, El Dorado Road, Tunapuna, 2 to 5 p.m.
Come share your important views on what you think laws that protect rights of persons with disabilities in Trinidad and Tobago should look like, and what must be included in that law to protect your rights.
The Law and Disability Rights Public Consultations, Saturday, 25th November, Naparima Girls Auditorium, San Fernando, and Saturday, 2nd December, Hillview College Auditorium, El Dorado Road, Tunapuna, 2 to 5 p.m.
Come share your perspective and contribute to crafting comprehensive laws to protect the rights of persons with disabilities in Trinidad and Tobago.
All right, thank you so much. 13 minutes before the hour of 7 o'clock. News at the top of the hour. AV is in already. Let's get into this morning's poll, gentlemen.
All right, so I'm suggesting that this be the poll.
Oh, I thought he was going to the banking sector.
Do you think that PM Dr. Keith Rowley should lead the government's team in the crime talks now that Gary Griffith has withdrawn his involvement? Yeah, that's a possible poll. Another way you could phrase it is, well, I suppose no matter how you phrase it, is the same thing. Yes. So that's our poll this morning. Do you think Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley should lead the government's team in the crime talks now that Gary Griffith has withdrawn his involvement? So Gary Griffith has said that he's a patriot first. Along those lines, I think is how he said it. And that he will step back so that the talks can go ahead because it's important that the talks go ahead. A version of that, I think, is what he said. You all can correct me if I'm wrong. But do you think that Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley should lead the government's team in the crime talks now that Gary Griffith has withdrawn his involvement? That's our poll this morning. What says you, yes or no?
All right, 222-8255, toll-free North Americans, 866-525-1099 on WhatsApp at 318-1021 on Facebook and on YouTube. Boy says yes.
Of course, you can send your votes via our comment section on the YouTube stream, on Facebook and LinkedIn. And of course, you can also WhatsApp your vote at 868-318-1021. That's our WhatsApp number, which you should have saved already.
All right, Josie Orlando Richardson says yes. Miss Bonner West says yes to the poll. What says you, caller?
No, definitely not.
All right, Captain Ron, thank you so much. Out in Orlando. Alan Reese says yes. Good morning, caller. Caller, good morning.
That he should have been
Morning, gentlemen. Sandy Grandy, yes, yes.
All right, thank you, Grandy. All the best to you.
Yes, I added 2 words.
But 2 words, yeah.
Should reconsider.
Or should reconsider is what you added.
Yeah. Good morning to Lorna, Indy, and of course Carly. Yes, absolutely. All right. Tool for North America. What?
Sorry.
That was one vote you just gave me because it said several names.
Yeah. Well, just one vote, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so that's our poll this morning. Do you think Dr. Keith Rowley should reconsider and lead the government's team in the crime talks now that Gary Griffith has withdrawn his involvement? I see that's our poll. Of course, 222-TALK, 222-8255, North Americans, 866-525-1099. Absolutely toll free to you, 866-525-1099. People on our YouTube stream, you can vote via the comment section. You can also vote on Facebook and LinkedIn, as well via WhatsApp at 318-1021. Of course, please add the Trinidad and Tobago code before that number.
All right. Nikki Cheek says yes. Wayne B says yes. Lester Craigwell, yes. Carol Guevara, yes. Pearl Cordis, yes.
Stevie Miss Guy Small said no.
Guy Small says no. There you go, yes.
Ish Chico said yes.
Yeah. Ish out in
Beauty
Malik
Culture
says yes.
said yes.
There was somebody who just said yes, say yes, Paul?
Beauty Culture.
Beauty Culture.
Beauty culture. Okay.
Julia S. Batiste says yes. Good morning, Julia. Good morning, Beauty Culture. Good morning, Pearl. Good morning, Guy. Good morning, Carol. Good morning, Lester. Good morning, Wayne B. Good morning, Nikki P.
All right.
Hey.
Good morning.
Hi. Morning, love of my life. Breath of fresh air on this program. Good morning, everyone. My answer is yes.
Yes. All right. Thank you.
So that's our poll this morning. Do you think PM Dr. Keith Rowley should reconsider and lead the government's team in the crime talks now that Gary Griffith has withdrawn his involvement? That's our poll this morning. What says you? And good morning to you, Shireen Jack. She says, good morning, blessings, you guys, and happy Tuesday, blessings. And she also says yes.
Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
And emphatic yes.
All right. Thank you, Zena.
Emphatic yes.
Anthony Tinto out in Canada says yes to the poll. Watching us on YouTube.
Did you get Ish Chico?
Yep.
Malik says yes.
Yep.
I didn't record that. I can't remember you saying that. I'll record it now. And these are some of the Facebook votes, obviously. These you have Facebook votes coming into.
And YouTube.
So,
Our poll.
and
Do you
YouTube.
think the Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley, should reconsider and lead the government's team in the crime talks now that Gary Griffith has withdrawn his involvement? Yes or no? All right. Vote on it. 222-8255. You call us directly in the studio. For those in cold North America or chilly North America, toll free, 866-525-1099. Via WhatsApp at 318-1021. On Facebook and on YouTube, like Kazim Mohammed, watching us on YouTube, says yes.
Ricardo also says yes.
Okay. Morning, Ricardo. Hope all is well. Yeah.
Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. The weather outside is chilly, and Zena inside is cold. And Paul knocks on the front door. Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow.
Anthony Franco says yes. Finbar Collins says no.
Ricardo wants to know where's your place in Samoa.
El Sicuro Road.
Steve, I've driven by there every week and I still can't find it.
Seriously? There's so many signs, and you know me, I big on signs. Ricardo, Paul Richards, if you're coming from the Quasi, and as you pass the Unipet gas station on your right as you head southbound, it is the fourth building on the right-hand side, right by a corner called Mirage Street. Cannot miss the sign.
Is that just after you pass MTS? On your left?
No, you buy Aranguez. There's El Socorro.
Unipet and El Socorro.
Yeah, if you're coming from the Quezon,
Yeah.
there's a Unipet gas station on the right-hand side.
From the El Socorro, from that where
Where the
True Value
Quezon is
that corner
itself,
there, right
by
True
True
Value
Value.
corner.
Oh,
Going
uh,
south.
oh, oh,
Right,
down
you go
that
down
road.
that way. Yeah.
Around where
Oh,
it is.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
You must know area my people are. I don't know what
Yeah,
to.
I know.
Yeah.
Barataria confuses me because it's so packed with all of these little side streets that
Yeah.
will run across.
Well, it confuses me with the
More than
avenues
I
and the
remember.
streets.
More than I remember side streets.
Yeah, Barataria. Barataria has all of these little turn-offs and and they have so many no entries.
Yeah, that was
Um,
under.
Yeah.
So it's like
And a lot of dead ends in some
Yeah.
areas.
And a lot of people break all those major roads. They don't see the huge stop signs.
yeah, you always have to take your time.
Chestnuts
Stop at every
are
intersection.
roasting.
You do.
Nikki
you
Key
do.
says, let it snow, Paul.
Zena's taking a shower.
Zena is taking a shower.
When she comes out the shower, happy holiday.
I brought out my Christmas P&M blanket this time.
She have a red bathrobe, it's fire.
And I brought my P&M Christmas blanket. That one
Yeah.
real fluffy and nice.
We're talking about the blanket.
Yes, the blanket.
The blanket fluffy, right? Okay, once we the blanket fluffy.
Uh,
There ain't nothing else fluffy there.
Paul. I just like that girl market, you know. You understand?
Somebody
The
says
whole blinking market.
In market. Oh Lord, everything on me fluffy. That just like the blanket, and that helping to keep the heat in the furnace going.
You see nothing about that, yes? Nikki
Somebody
Key.
say you're
Nikki
singing soft porn.
Yeah.
I don't know how you sing soft porn.
How do you sing soft porn? How do you sing soft porn?
Apparently, you just did it.
Innovation.
Good morning to Brenda Starr. Karen Yipnow. Karen Yipnow says, what? Okay, I don't know if that's a yes for what Paul's saying or yes for the poll.
Zena could roast a good poultry, you know.
Do you think Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley should reconsider and lead the government's team in the crime talks now that Gary Griffith has withdrawn his involvement?
That's good like a pork too.
That's our poll.
They do a crispy pork.
Karen Yipnow says yes to the poll.
And Zena wants to tell you, them heels need some cream, eh? It's kind of scratch you. The heels need some attention.
Yes, Lip Celeste says pound for pound. I don't know what that means. Pound for pound. I think it's something to and you know, it says he does.
Laughing children, call on Mr. Santa.
Brenda Starr says yes to the
Teddy
poll.
bears,
Actually, she gave a
and
comment.
Zena crying, mama.
Yes to the poll. In the first
The
meeting,
fragrance.
both leaders should be present and they can set the stage for further talks between both teams with or without the leaders as required.
Of black fruitcake and red wine.
Ruben, there goes our next copyright strike.
Yep. That's true. I think if you sing a whole 8 or something, you just get a strike. I can't step in before that. His name is Jesus. Come, little children, around my Christmas tree. We'll have a very merry time.
I got a note to the poll via WhatsApp. Thank you so
We'll
much.
sing, laugh, and pray till the break of New Year's Day. We listen to the church bells chime.
Good morning, caller.
Good morning, St. Mary's Maruga said yes.
Mary's Maruga.
Good morning, Maruga.
Mary's Maruga. Thank you so much.
That's my favorite Christmas song of all time, too, as a local song.
Around my Christmas tree, yeah.
I love that Lennox Gray.
I think everybody loves that. When you hear that, you know it's Christmas.
Mrs. R, why do you always have to compare? You have a little issue with your husband, you know.
The great says, good morning, gentlemen. Yes, from Ontario, Canada. Did I mark that one? I don't think I marked. Did I mark Wayne Joseph?
I don't. I
said
it.
Yes. Yeah. You read it out?
Yeah.
Okay, well then I probably wrote it.
Yeah. Slick Money Grip says no to the poll.
Karen, that was a local song.
That is a local song, Karen. Yep. Now
you might know that. The other one is when Joseph was a young man was he. That one is a saucy song, if you listen to the lyrics. She ain't easy at all. She tells Joseph, go and let the father of your child pick the cherries for you and thing. Never rude. He's a rapper and sing. If you play one, we play some in the morning and just take the copyright strike. There's no scene. I'll edit it when I put it back up. Right, Steve?
You're on your own.
Marvel on the road says yes.
Marvel, you gotta say it properly. It's Marvel on the road. All right. Speaking of on the road, let's go to the chair opposite me. Avi is
Christmas chair and jolly singing, Mama. I really could sing it.
All right, let's get into, what's that, Evie? Sorry?
Nothing.
Oh. You sure?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's get into 7 o'clock major news. If he is in, God help us.
This is your news bulletin from Power 102 Digital.
Gary Griffith bows out of crime talks to make way for opposition-government collaboration. Criminologist Randy C. Prasad cautions against anti-crime talks between the government and opposition being turned into a talk shop. TNT urged to learn lessons from Petrotrin's operations, and rescuers break through to trapped India tunnel workers. Details in a moment. This is News 2, 7 o'clock on Power 102 Digital. I'm Avril Sintel-Bab. Good morning. Opposition United National Congress leader Kamala Persad-Bissassa revealed yesterday that National Transformation Alliance leader Gary Griffith has formally bowed out of crime talks to be held between the opposition and the government. She is now calling on Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley to lead the government's team to the discussions. Persad-Bissassa was speaking yet last evening during a UNC meeting. Persad-Bissassa said Griffith did so since he didn't want to be the reason that the talks were scuttled.
One thing we must have in common is our love for the people of our country and of our country. Mr. Griffith has no criminal charges against him. He's exceptionally qualified to contribute to these talks. However, it is clear that the presence of Mr. Griffith, as I said before, causes great anguish to Prime Minister Rowley. Great anguish. Anguish, yes. He seems when he speaks of Griffith is very anguished. Great anguish to the Prime Minister, and that is Prime Minister's reason to refuse coming to the crime talks. So therefore, after consultation with our team and with Mr. Gary Griffith, Mr. Griffith has selflessly put his inclusion on the opposition team on hold, as he did not want to be scapegoated as the reason that these talks were not going to be held. Talks scuttled because of Gary Griffith, because of the tobacco.
Meanwhile, criminologist Randy Sipasad is cautioning anti-crime talks between government and the opposition not be turned into a talk shop. The coordinator of the criminology unit at the University of the West Indies made the comments while being interviewed on the afternoon Power Drive program on Power 102 Digital on Monday. Mr. Sipasad is suggesting stakeholder involvement should be included in the process in order to get their input and contribution. He said legislation and implementation must go together in order to be effective.
So this has to be a model that is very, very different. It cannot afford to be a talk shop. It cannot afford to be something just for the politics to appease the population, to make them look like something is going to happen, because perhaps an election is around the corner. We have to stop all of that. Because this is far too serious of a problem. This is not a fun and games kind of problem that we're dealing with, right? As I said, this is a problem that is paid for in people's lives. These are not just numbers on a piece of paper. It's people's lives and livelihoods.
Mr. Sipasad also expressed his views on the composition of the teams, which should be part of the deliberations, adding it should be one which will be a balanced, reliable, and not politicians alone.
For those people who are on the team, create a mechanism or at least allow it to be known that they can rely on their subordinates for the information. Just as you talk about the technocrats serving as a support team for permanent secretaries and for ministers, they can rely on their technocrats. They can rely on the people on the ground, right? But at the same time, it can't just be politicians alone. Because quite often politicians are non-specialists. Yes, they know a lot about their field and their ministries, but quite often they're non-specialists.
There is the view that lessons should and can be learned from the closure of Petrotrin and adjustments made to ensure negatives can be turned into positives, create better governance of the oil and gas sector, and maintain transparency and accountability. This is the view expressed by Energy, Policy and Strategic Advisor Anthony Paul. He made the assessment during his input to an online symposium held on Monday by the Oilfields Workers Trade Union. It was held to mark the 5th anniversary of the closure of the state-owned company Petrotrin and the sending home of all the workers.
What I'm making is we need to step back now and say, where are we going with this industry? How do we get there? What are we doing about managing the resource below the ground? The whole cycle from licensing to exploration to production. We know we haven't been doing really good at licensing, getting new investors in. How are we managing our people? The people running the industry have been there for a long time. Most have retired. A lot of back-end contracts. What's the plan for young people? How are we getting more value from the oil and gas industry? And look back at what we've done with Petrotrin in the last 5 years and see how we can improve on that.
In his wrapping up, Mr. Paul asked the question, what caused the Petrotrin failure and closure? He was asked that question. He responded by saying that improved governance and the holding of people to account are vital factors.
I would say we need to definitely improve the governance of the oil and gas sector to make the legislative and institutional instruments up to date, and most importantly, to hold all actors along the chain to account with transparent reporting. And we haven't got that for the cabinet, we haven't got it for the minister or the ministry, and we certainly haven't got it for the state companies. So as people who own the resources, ourselves as citizens, we do not have anybody accounting to us on how they're managing our assets in a way that, in my view, is satisfactory.
It will be good to find out how communities in and around the Point-a-Pear refinery are coping following the closure of the state-owned entity. This is according to economists from the University of the West Indies, Marlene Atz. Ms. Atz took note of the socio-economic impact of the closure on fence-line communities, which would have enjoyed a level of sustainability and livelihood from the refinery's operations. She admitted the economics, financial, and accounting of Petrotrin was one aspect, but there's also the socio-economic dynamics of the state enterprise and what has happened later on.
The local economic development that depended on Petrotrin, but now we have to look at the local economic decline as a result of the closure. And I don't know if that has in fact been measured, but I think it's something that we can speak to, because we tend to look at outcomes in Trinidad and Tobago. So we look at crime, we look at unemployment, but we actually don't look at the causal factors that would have led to certain outcomes. So it would be useful for us to have a sense of what has happened in the fence line communities and all of those communities that would have depended on Petrotrin.
Ms. Arts also reviewed the country debt situation in terms of borrowing, availability of foreign currency, Petrotrin's closure, the implications of such, and how the company's contribution came into the mix in terms of a national outlook.
So we have in fact been borrowing more on the local market than we have been borrowing on the international market. But even though the international debt is lower than the domestic debt, it means that we have to, that external debt, the overseas debt, that has to be paid in foreign currency. And if we're not earning a lot of foreign currency from the energy sector because of price fluctuations, reductions in production, etc., mothballing of plants, etc., if we're not earning, it means that we are challenged in terms of meeting the interest payments and the principal payments for external debt.
From Tuesday, December the 15th, the Trinidad and Tobago Manufacturers Association will host a private sector delegation on a trade mission to Antigua and Barbuda. The trade mission comprises 14 countries, or companies rather, with more than 20 persons in attendance from various sectors. They include transportation, shipping and logistics, printing and packaging, banking and finance, apparel and safety wear, chemicals and non-metallics, construction and building masters. Antigua and Barbuda is a major trading partner for Trinidad and Tobago. You are listening to news on Power 102 Digital to 7 o'clock. Further afield, rescuers say they have broken through to 41 workers trapped in a tunnel in Uttarakhand state since 12th November. The men became stuck after a landslide nearby brought down a mountain of debris. None are thought to be injured. They will now be extracted one by one via a 90-centimeter diameter pipe inserted through the rubble of the collapsed tunnel. Having to cut through metal rods has repeatedly impeded the rescue, and loose soil and hard rock have slowed progress. Last Friday, officials said the workers would be out in a matter of hours until a giant drill broke down inside the tunnel. Authorities have been supplying the men with oxygen, food, and water through a separate narrow pipe. Well, finally, here's the weather news for the period today till midnight. Trinidad and Tobago, mostly fair hazy and at times breezy, interrupted by a few isolated showers. Generally fair night. There is a light to moderate concentration of Saharan dust present in the atmosphere, so persons sensitive to these conditions are being asked to be careful. Look out for a forecast maximum temperature of 32 degrees Celsius, both at Piarco International Airport and Crown Point in Tobago. It is now 27 degrees Celsius at both localities. Also, spring tides are presently in effect, according to the Meteorological Office, so sea enthusiasts should exercise caution, especially during high tides. Recapping our headlines to 7 o'clock, Gary Griffith bows out of crime talks with opposition government collaboration. Criminologist Randy C. Prasad cautions against anti-crime talks between government and opposition becoming a talk shop. TNT urged to learn lessons from Petrotrin's operations, and rescuers break through a trapped India tunnel workers. I'm Avril Sintel-Bab. That was News 2, 7 o'clock on Power 102 Digital. Cover news in detail 12 news and at 8 o'clock this morning. For more details, log on to power2m.com.
Up to date and credible. Power 102 Digital.
All right, thank you, Avril, for our major news. Of course, you can join the AV again. Come at 8 o'clock for our news brief. Quickly, let's take a look at what's happening traffic-wise in San Fernando. Your heavy spot this morning is Turuba Link Road from Napri Mamiara Road. If you're southbound on the Solo exit into Turuba Link Road, you've got some traffic. You head towards Marabella through that roundabout there by Turuba Link Road. You've got some traffic, but not too bad. Northbound on the Solo Rivulet Road is a bit heavy. Your traffic this morning is going to start from Charlieville. All right, usual routes, got the traffic. Do I have to tell you? Lady Young Road from Mova Junction to the Lookout. All right, after Coconut Drive, it gets a bit heavier. All right, that's your traffic update. Let's see if we have any more votes. We've got CJ from New York saying yes to the poll. Good morning, Brenda Starr, aka Scorpion Pepper. Trini in Boston, good morning to you as well. Hope all is well with you. So let's get the results of our morning poll.
You didn't have to call the guest, right, Steve?
Yeah, I'm going to wait for it to come in.
Well, we had 32 people voting on the poll this morning. And of course, our poll was and is, do you think that Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley should reconsider and lead the government's team in the crime talks now that Guy Griffith has withdrawn? 27 of you said yes. You think that the Prime Minister should reconsider and lead the government's team. And 5 of you said no, for a total of 32 people voting on the poll this morning in the allotted time. Of course, you can continue to vote on this poll throughout the day, throughout all programming, and we'll give you our final results tomorrow morning, which will be Wednesday and midweek as we come to the end of November and move into the Christmas month itself. So obviously public sentiment is that he should, but public sentiment was that he should have he should have been in the crime talks anyway. When we did previous polls, even if Gary Griffith was there were polls, the polls we would have done would have indicated that people preferred that he be there.
Mm-hmm. So, all right, gentlemen, Paul, introduce our guest.
All right. Good morning to Dr. Anthony Gonzalez. Dr. Anthony Gonzalez is an honorary senior fellow of the Institute of International Relations, UWI's St. Augustine campus. Good morning, Dr. Gonzalez. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Yes, good morning. Yes, my pleasure. Yes.
Appreciate you being with us. We wanted to have an expert with your kind of credentials to talk about this ongoing Venezuela-Guyana impasse and where you think the situation, what the implications are for Trinidad and Tobago, because they're both just west of us. And we have significant interests in both territories. So to start, can you give us a bit of a brief historical background into this situation, please?
Yes, well, this has a very long history, as you would appreciate. This conflict goes way back into the 19th century. The question was tackled in 1899. They tried to resolve it by setting up a tribunal, and the tribunal made an award, which was then contested by one of the participants in the tribunal. After the award was made and the territories were clearly defined, not long after that, well, I should say quite a few years actually after that, that award was made in 1899, and then in 1948, one of the lawyers, he was a junior lawyer in the process, he decided that the process wasn't fair, and he wrote a letter which was published. He asked for it to be published after his death, and in 1949, that letter was published in the American Journal of International Law, claiming that the process was fraudulent, and there was a political deal rather than a judicial settlement. So that reopened the whole matter, and in 1962, the Venezuelans claimed that the process was not fair, and they reopened the whole dispute. At the time, of course, you would know that Guyana was on the independence track. What they did was to get together with the British and so on, and agree that this matter should be discussed further after independence, and they signed the famous Geneva Agreement, in which they agreed to talk about it and see if they can resolve it. And that since that Geneva Agreement was signed, that Guyana became a party to the dispute because it became independent. The British was also named in that agreement, but the British has since, the British no longer plays a role because they were a former colony and they came out. So it was left with Guyana and Venezuela to try to resolve the matter. So they went on, they have been going on since 1966. They have been trying to resolve this matter, and they have not been able to do that through several procedures they have established. One was to talk bilaterally, then that collapsed, then after 4 years of that from 1966, they decided, okay, it wouldn't work. And then they came to Port of Spain here with Dr. Williams, and they agreed to the protocol of Port of Spain to try to resolve it. And that set out a process that they would have a mixed commission, and they would talk, and they continued talking for a long time up until 1982, and those mixed commissions did not work. And then they decided to go back to the United Nations. The Secretary General was the person who they had put in charge of these various procedures. If they couldn't agree, they would go back to him, and they went back to him, and he established a new procedure, which was a procedure of good officers, which allowed them to appoint various various mediators. So you had various people like Alistair McIntyre, Professor Norman Grosvenor, and others who were established to try to resolve the dispute. And that went for a long time until it reached a point where Guyana felt they were going nowhere with that, and they decided that they wanted another procedure. So they both agreed to go back to the Secretary General, and they went back to the UN Secretary General. And he agreed to send the matter to, with the agreement actually of both of them, they agreed to go to the International Court of Justice to resolve the matter. But then after they went there, after I think about the first, Venezuela said that it was not interested in that procedure, and they would not participate in the international, in the process in the International Court of Justice. So, but anyway, the International Court of Justice had jurisdiction because the Secretary General referred the matter to them. He was authorized to already refer the matter to them. And the Secretary General has been the International Court of Justice has been deliberating on this matter, and they're still to make a final judgment sometime, we hope sometime soon, but we're still waiting to see. They decided they have jurisdiction in the matter. That was the decision they made earlier, and now they're still going through the substantive part of the case. So that matter is pending. In the meantime, there's a lot of controversy going on. The Venezuelans have, as you are aware, they've moved troops on the frontier. They're not satisfied with this International Court of Justice process. They want bilateral talks with Venezuela. With Guyana. Guyana is refusing bilateral talks. They said they have had enough of bilateral talks, and the matter is in the hands of the International Court of Justice. The Venezuelans are not happy with that. They're putting pressure on the Guyanese to try to come and discuss the matter further bilaterally, but the Guyanese are refusing that.
Well, Dr. Gonzalez, if Venezuela has refused to acknowledge the legitimacy of the International Court of Justice and their upcoming ruling in this matter, where does it leave any discussion between the both parties moving forward with a neutral international mediator? Because they both have their both perspectives on this.
Yeah, well, the problem is that they're not going back to another mediator. They have had that long process, and they cannot resolve the matter. You see, essentially, the Guyanese are saying that the court has to decide whether the arbitral award was null and void. Only until the court can decide that, because as far as they're concerned, they cannot see how an award could be overturned by a letter from a junior lawyer in the case. He was a junior lawyer on the Venezuelan side. In those cases, Venezuelans didn't really participate in it. They left it to the Americans to sort of decide, and there was an American lawyer who actually came up with that letter. So that they're not going back. The Guyanese are not going back to this question of a mediator again. I think they have enough of that, and they want the International Court to make a decision. Now, the Venezuelans are not accepting any decision from the International Court of Justice. They have said that clearly. They said that they will not be bound by any decision of the International Court of Justice, so that they have already rejected whatever the International Court of Justice may decide. They want to continue talking with Guyana to see if they can resolve the matter. But the Guyanese have said they no longer want to talk about that. So that's where we have reached. You see, we have reached that point, that kind of impasse. And this is why you cannot have any more bilateral talks between Venezuela and Guyana. So with that kind of impasse, what you have now is a lot of saber rattling and movement of troops to the border, and talk about Ghana giving military bases to the Americans to establish themselves in there, to help them protect the territory and so forth. So that is at the stage where we reach now, and how we get out of there is the big question. I think we're all trying to see how ready we move forward from this particular point.
How important is this for the Americans, given that ExxonMobil, the biggest oil company in the US, has significant stakes in Guyana, and Guyana's energy sector is developing rapidly with a lot of American and other interests there?
Yeah, certainly. The Americans have interest through ExxonMobil, and then now Chevron has also become heavily involved in it. And this is what has really stirred the controversy even further. The discovery of all these oil blocks offshore, very, very productive and so forth. Ghana has been rated as the next frontier in oil production. Oil production going to 1 million barrels a day by the next 4 or 5 years, and so on, and even probably more. So that is why, to some extent, that is fueling the controversy. But even without that, you would still have the controversy, because I think it is fair to say that the Guyanese have come to a point where they believe they cannot do anything with the territory. Anything they try to develop in that Essequibo region, the Venezuelans object to. They try to develop the Mazuruni Dam. The Venezuelans objected to the financing and stopped the financing from, I think it was the IDB Bank or some international bank. They tried to develop also to the region as a kind of space. I think there was an international company that wanted a location there to send rockets into space and so forth. The Venezuelans stopped it. Any move they make to try to develop that territory, the Venezuelans put a halt to it. So they cannot do anything with the territory. So as far as the Guyanese is concerned, look, this matter has to be settled one way or the other. We might as well try and settle it now, because we can't do much with the territory. The Venezuelans talk about a joint development, that they would want to develop the territory together with the Guyanese in some kind of joint arrangement, but nobody is clear exactly how that would work. And, most people tend to think that this matter should be settled in some form or the other. So here we are. And, we are at this point now where we're trying to see basically how we go forward and get this matter settled.
Yeah.
So,
but it's also an issue. It is also, of course, an issue for CARICOM, because Guyana is a part of CARICOM. And I know CARICOM has issued a statement on the issue, even though, of course, from a Trinidad and Tobago context, Trinidad, of course, has its CARICOM obligations, but also has its own geopolitical self-interest with regard to certain agreements it would have signed with Venezuela. How does Trinidad and Tobago navigate this? And do we automatically have to side with CARICOM, which is where I think a lot of citizens are thinking?
Yes, well, you're correct. Trinidad has interests which spans both countries. We are part of CARICOM, and at the same time, we're trying to operate on very good terms with Venezuela. We're trying to get, as you know, dragon gas from Venezuela. We also have the Manatee arrangement with Venezuela. They have allowed us to go ahead and do drilling on the Manatee field, and we have settled our borders with Venezuela, and we hope they don't ever come back to that. But Venezuela is no longer, has never been, rather. They have never accepted the international treaty or the law of the sea, so that one never knows exactly where they could go with some of these things. But the point is that basically we have interest with Venezuela. We have interest with Guyana as well, too, as a member of CARICOM. Guyana is a kind of brother nation, and we do a lot of business with Guyana. We trade a lot with Guyana and so on. So that we have to straddle a very difficult path. We're sort of walking a tightrope, like most of the other CARICOM countries. You would find that, for instance, Barbados, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. These countries have very strong relations with Venezuela as well. They enjoy the Petrocaribe concession which Chavez gave to them. But although Petrocaribe no longer exists, and the sanctions from the Americans have, to some extent, stopped it, they're talking about reviving it as the sanctions have been lifted recently by the Americans. So the Venezuelans say that they're interested in it, and most of them have been making a pilgrimage to Caracas to get Venezuela to restart it. You know, it helps them a lot in terms of allowing them to get a fiscal concession. That is to say, when I say a fiscal concession, I mean they get oil at a subsidized price, and at that price, they're able to have some kind of greater revenue for the national budget, so that the Petrocaribe concession has been has made an important contribution to the national revenue and the system along these lines. So they have
what's the implication for Dr. Rowley in particular, and by extension Trinidad and Tobago? As you've clearly outlined and very articulately so, Trinidad and Tobago's interests in both countries are very clear. One, on the energy and oil sector with Venezuela because of the Dragon and Manatee, the Manatee field and the impending Dragon signage, and also the trade interests and collaboration interests with Guyana. But Dr. Rowley / Trinidad Tobago has already kind of defied the US in a particular way. And there may be implications that TNT-US relations, given the US history with Venezuela and our continued championing of that relationship with Venezuela, and Dr. Rowley has, and Trinidad Tobago by extension, has already not capitulated to a lot of the American perspectives in the past couple of years on Venezuela and continue to forge our economic ties with Venezuela. Are there implications to TNT-US relations with this?
Well, I think basically that Trinidad has taken a slightly different position with respect to Venezuela. They have decided to recognize the government in Venezuela. That's since you had that problem with Maduro and the Americans. And I think the Americans have accepted that we have slightly different interests, and we have managed over the years to work with that, and we have been able to continue these discussions with the Venezuela on the Dragon gas, along with trying to settle a lot of problems we have with the migrants and so forth. We have maintained that cordial relation with the Venezuela. Even beyond cordiality, we have tried to work out a number of things with them. And I think that is in the best interest of Trinidad. So that the Americans have, in a sense, come to terms with that. America is still one of the major allies of this country, and we work together with the Americans on several fronts. I think in the major fronts where, for example, in terms of economics, in terms of military cooperation, in terms of other things, we work very strongly with the Americans, so that there's that understanding. Now, with respect to Guyana, I think the Americans tend to favor Guyana in this particular dispute, and that may, to some extent, be due to the interest in Venezuela. In Guyana. That is, of course, they have Exxon, and Chevron. And in this time where you have this major problem of oil and gas supply, which is affecting the Western world, as you know, with the whole problem of Ukraine and the supply from Russia and so forth, oil and gas have become very, very important for the Americans. So that they have a very strong interest in Guyana, and trying to see that, Guyana remains to some extent, an ally of the Americans and an area where they have access to the oil and gas. As you know, for example, they don't have similar conditions with Venezuela because of what has happened with Exxon and Chevron to a lesser extent. Chevron is now back in Venezuela, but they've had problems with the Venezuelans because the Venezuelans nationalized the oil industry. And I doubt they would get the same concessions in Venezuela as they get, for example, with Guyana. So you have that, the Americans having that kind of interest in Guyana, and they're talking to the Guyanese. I believe sometime this week or next week they're supposed to send officials from the State Department to discuss some kind of cooperation with the Guyanese. I don't know to what extent it could lead to things like a military base or something like that, but they have some discussions going on with the Guyanese. And
what is the opportunity for Trinidad and Tobago? Because I'm looking at all this, and based on where Trinidad and Tobago is geographically located, and in terms of the geopolitics of its relationship between Guyana and Trinidad and Tobago and Venezuela and TNT, there may be significant opportunities to TNT here.
Well, the thing is that Trinidad and Tobago has to be very, very cautious. It has to watch every step it's made. I think it has to follow the evolution of the crisis. Right now, it takes a position which it has always taken, which is that it supports Guyana, it supports the CARICOM position, it supports the idea of CARICOM being a zone of peace. It doesn't want any war between the two parties. It calls on the two parties to try to resolve the matter. It realizes that this has consequences for all of us, and it would like to see Venezuela and Guyana resolve the matter peacefully. So that is the position basically of Trinidad, which I think is, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a solid position. Now, where it goes from here is a different matter. That is to say, the extent to which, for example, this conflict could flare up. Let's say, for example, militarily, the Venezuelans make some wrong moves, although they claim they're not really wanting to settle this matter by military means and they want to settle it through negotiation. One never knows where these things go. So that the issue could flare up to some extent, and one would find that it becomes more difficult for Trinidad to take a position in that situation. You know, would have to see if it flares up, what happens then, and you know what we would do. Should we take a position with Guyana and cause problems with Venezuela, or should we take a position with Venezuela and cause problems with Guyana? You see, it's very difficult because we are going to be pushed by both sides to try to take a position. And we would then have to decide what we would do about it. Would we take a position where we have the greatest interest? Let's say if we have greater interest in Venezuela, should we take a position and then sort of neglect Venezuela, neglect Guyana, which is a CARICOM member? We see all these decisions we would have to make. For the time being, we would like, I think, the situation to go where we get some kind of peaceful resolution of the matter, and we would take a position which is we want to see the region remain a zone of peace, and we would like to see the parties resolve the matter, in that.
I mean, I think that's the kind of ideal position, but if it was to escalate, does Trinidad and Tobago have any other choice but to align itself with CARICOM?
Well, I think it seems to me that, we have a kind of stronger ties with Guyana. We would more or less sort of take a position that CARICOM would take. That is to say, we would want to go together with the CARICOM members, take a position at that time that they would take. We would all come together and see if we could take a position, which I think would more or less be a position in favor of Guyana. Now, I think the Venezuelans understand our CARICOM position to some extent. We have always taken it, and they understand, okay, we would more or less take a position with Guyana. The point is that if we go against them in a very strong way, if we go and we begin to condemn them internationally and we go all to the UN and we side with the Americans, let's say the Americans turn against them and we go and side with the Americans against them, we can run into some problems down the road, you see, so that we just have to wait and see, and as the thing evolves, we would then see basically what would be the position we could take at that particular point in time, so that it's difficult to sort of prejudge this. It's difficult to say that this is the position that we have to take at this point in time, when we do not know exactly how the matter would evolve. I think there are a lot of parties involved here. Let us not forget that you have the Brazilians are also involved in this in a very strong way. You have, I guess, other countries in the region who are concerned with the neighboring countries like Colombia and so on and others. And they would all want to see some kind of peaceful resolution of this matter. So you have other parties to come into this thing to some extent. I think if the Americans get involved in any kind of stronger way, we are likely to see the United Nations also coming on board. We don't know what the Russians and the Chinese may do. For example, the Chinese have relations with both sides, very strong. I don't know if they would want to get too involved in this. The Russians have very strong relations with the Venezuelans. They have supplied the military there with a lot of modern equipment. So they would have to sort of show their hand if the matter evolves to a particular point. So there's a lot of things to play, and we just have to wait and see. We can't prejudge things a bit. We have to wait and see what the court may decide. The court, as you know, is right now looking at this question of the referendum in Venezuela. Guyana has asked the court to make a judgment about it because it looks at the referendum as a threat to Guyana. and because the referendum talks about annexing the territory of Ghana.
On the issue of the referendum, has CARICOM made a statement with regard to the referendum?
I have not seen a statement from CARICOM on that. I think CARICOM has stayed clear of that. What they have said is they support Ghana and they support a peaceful settlement. They want the area to remain a zone of peace, so that they haven't clearly taken a position on the referendum. The court
and what will be the implications of the outcome of that referendum, which many suggest will go in favor of the Maduro government's stated position on the matter?
Yes, well, it's clear that 99% of Venezuela is going to vote in favor of that referendum. And all of the referendum asks them is to say whether Essequibo is a part of Ghana, which all Venezuelans accept and have been pushing for years, that Essequibo is a part of Ghana. The referendum also talks about making the citizens of that area, that Essequibo area, I think there are around 20,000 of them, largely Amerindian people, making them as citizens of Venezuela. And then there are other things about, there are one or two other questions in there that also to concern whether the Venezuelan state could do certain things. So one knows that is going to be in favor of the Maduro government. But when, I have some difficulty in understanding that if 99% of Venezuela votes in favor of annexing the territory, how does the government not act in a certain way to get to respond to that decision? And it seems to me that what the Venezuelans say is that they're still the referendum. I'm not clear whether the referendum says that they should continue to seek a peaceful settlement. You see, I think the Venezuelans are saying that the referendum doesn't mean that we should get involved in military action. That if we should continue to respect the peaceful process, and even though they talk about annexing the country, the territory, they would continue to act in a peaceful way and try to negotiate a settlement with Ghana. Now that is what the officials say. Yes.
You mentioned a while ago the involvement of both the Russians and the Chinese and their interests in both countries, and also the potential involvement of the United Nations, depending on how this referendum goes and how the Venezuelan government responds to the outcome of the referendum. Do you see this in the next couple months going into 2024 evolving as a global geopolitical issue?
Yes, it could. It could, depending on what kind of moves the various parties make. We could make certain kind of assumptions. We could, put forward certain kind of scenarios. Let me just give you one scenario. Now, in case the referendum, we know is going to say that the territory should be annexed. And we know that the Venezuelans have moved troops up to the frontier. They are building an airstrip. They are building paths which allow them to move their troops much more freely in that area. They have taken over the whole of Anacoco Island, which, as you know, is in dispute because the half of that island is supposed, according to the boundaries, to go to Ghana. But since the time they made that claim in the 1960s, they have taken over that whole Anacoco Island, and they're using it as a kind of military base. So they have a lot of troops stationed on the frontier. Let's assume, for example, that they try to put further pressure on Ghana, and they've decided to, undertake excursions into the Essequibo region. They mightn't take the whole region; they may take a part of it, and so forth. Ghana decides to react. And, we're speculating here, but I think it's interesting speculation. Let's say Ghana decides to make an arrangement with the Americans to have some kind of military presence up in that area and so forth. All of that could lead to a certain kind of escalation. The Guyanese could also make a move in the territorial waters as they did some years ago, and I think they stopped the American company from doing seismic surveys in that Essequibo region. They could also make some kind of, intervention that would stop that would try at least to stop the American companies from exploiting the oil there.
Well, because of that strong American interest, and in the context of the American Monroe Doctrine, which specifies that anything in the Western Hemisphere is of geopolitical interest to the US. How do you think, if the US decide, well, Venezuela is building airstrips and etc., to decide on a military or stronger presence to protect their interests in Ghana, that will be responded to under the Monroe Doctrine from the Venezuelan side?
Well, I'm not sure the Monroe Doctrine is still in operation here. You know, I think that to some extent that went out somewhere, you know, some years ago. I think the Americans have interest. They have interest now because they have companies exploring for oil. The international context for oil is not too much in their favor with all the shortage of oil and all the, you know, all that is happening in Ukraine with the Russians and so forth. So they have very strong interest in the oil in Ghana. So they may want to act on that basis, quite apart from the Monroe Doctrine. The Monroe Doctrine talked about foreigners being involved. At the time, it was the British in the hemisphere here. The idea was to keep the British and other foreign countries out of the hemisphere. Foreign meaning the European countries largely. Do
you think the Americans will increase their military presence generally in the area, also in Trinidad and Tobago, because of the ties and the collaborations we've had and the relationship over the years?
Well, I'm not sure they may want to come into Trinidad because you know, we are not in dispute, and what they had a military base here, but that has gone since. I don't see why they would want to revive that, because that is far from the conflict in a certain way. I don't think they would want, but I think certainly that they would want to defend their interests in Ghana. That is to say, they may want to send their ships, their warships, to try to defend any attack that Venezuela may want to put on their companies exploring for oil in that area. If it comes to that, they may want to really do that. So we want us to take that into account. So as I said, they have that interest. And we know of the conflict with Maduro and the sanctions have imposed. They're not too happy with how things are going in Venezuela. They have relaxed the sanctions because of the interest in seeing, you know, exploration for Venezuelan oil continue, and Venezuelan oil continue to come on the international market and provide some relief to a lot of what is happening in terms of the world supply of oil. So they have been taking that kind of position in order to try to facilitate some kind of understanding with Maduro. Now, we don't know what Maduro is likely to do. Is he likely to respect these conditions? Is he likely to have free and fair elections? Is he likely to allow Machado to participate in the election? We're still waiting to see what Maduro decides on these matters. It all depends on what he decides. If he decides he's not going that way and he's going to take a tough line and hold elections in a kind of authoritarian way, then we may see a different kind of American reaction. You know, they may come down heavier on him, and then they may link that to what is happening with Ghana and decide, look, we have to get tough here with you, and we have to probably put some military presence there. We have to start.
And in the context of the outcome of the referendum, which, as you said, most people think it will go in favor of Maduro's position, how much of this is of value to Maduro for the upcoming Venezuelan elections?
Yes, it is of some importance to him. I should have mentioned that because, Maduro's position is pretty weak insofar as, the problems of Venezuela. We all know them. We see them with the migrants coming here and so forth. The economy has declined substantially. And Maduro is in a pretty weak position in terms of the polls. I think one poll put the support of Maduro to about 20%. So Maduro is trying to boost his political support. And Machado has a fair amount of support in the country. I think since years ago, I'm trying to remember his name, but we haven't seen an opposition leader emerge with the kind of strength that Machado has emerged right now. So she's a major challenger. And the appeal to the border dispute, which will bring a lot of nationalism and support for the government. Maduro is playing on this to try to boost his support in the polls for the election sometime next year. I can't remember what month it is, but it's sometime next year. So he's obviously using the border dispute to try to strengthen his position politically for the election next year. And I think, the opposition is aware of this. Machado, for example, she says that she's not in agreement with the referendum. She thinks this is not a way to do this, and, it sort of interferes with the process of settling the dispute, which is the Geneva Agreement, as well as the process in the International Court of Justice. So that there's some disagreement there. But, border disputes tend to evoke a lot of nationalism. And, one can see the kind of strength of nationalism that is arising in Venezuela, both in the military as well as in the population at large, which can lead to greater support for Maduro. Yeah.
If we could change gears just a bit, what are your thoughts on Trinidad and Tobago's migration policy vis-a-vis the Venezuelans and other persons entering this country, and how we've managed that over the last couple of years?
That's an extremely difficult process. I think, first of all, we are a very small country. We are limited in terms of the amount of migrants we can take. And we have done fairly well in the sense that as compared to, let's say, the other countries. And let's face it, most of the Venezuelans have largely gone to Colombia and to Peru, Ecuador, and Chile, and the rest of Latin America. I think some people say we have about 40,000, some people say as much as 100,000 Venezuelan migrants here. And when we look around, for example, we don't see them really sleeping on the streets or sleeping on the beaches in Trinidad and, living in very squalid conditions. As we do see, for example, in Colombia and some of these other places, they have it very, very difficult. They pitch tents on the streets, they sleep on the beaches to some extent, and so on. Now, so we have managed the problem much better than most of the other Latin American countries. It is still difficult, however, because we have to help in terms of social services, provide healthcare, provide education, and so forth. What we have not done is to try to regularize their situation in a way in which some of the other Latin American countries have done. For example, Colombia has given them, a kind of pathway to citizenship, to residential status, which we have not done. So we have had this registration process, which they have to do every year. So we don't provide any kind of permanency in their status, which is to say, okay, after 2 years of residency, you can become a permanent resident, and then you could probably look forward to citizenship after 10 years, which is what Colombia has done. So they're there and they're going back and forth. If they get a job here, they stay here and they try to survive here and so forth. But we have a problem in the sense that this Geneva Agreement, which deals with asylum seekers, is a very difficult one, as the Europeans and the Americans themselves are realizing today. It allows any and everyone to come and claim asylum status, and it forces the government to try to grant some asylum status to people who are actually economic migrants. And if they're not asylum seekers, they're not under any kind of persecution at home, but they're coming to look for economic opportunity. Understanding, of course, that yes, they have a difficult time at home and they're looking for opportunity and they're coming. So that, in a way, makes it very difficult, and we have had to get around that. We have had to cancel this thing about free entry and establish a visa requirement. You must get a visa in Venezuela before you come to Trinidad. That was done some years ago to stop this idea of people just turning up at the borders and claiming asylum status. So you have to get a visa before you come to Trinidad, and you have to apply for migrant status or asylum status in Venezuela before you come to Trinidad. So in that sense, I think we have tried to regulate it. It's a very, very difficult problem because, you have boatloads of people who just turn up in, let's say, Los Heroes, and you would claim asylum status. What do? They put a lot of stress on you in terms of trying to find accommodation for them, trying to find schooling and housing and various things for them. So it's not a very easy process. Hopefully, if Venezuela catches itself, and hopefully if Venezuela recovers, if economically and oil production has been increasing, we may see less and less migrants coming as compared to years ago. I think it's about 7 million Venezuelans that have left Venezuela. And that's a large number of people, and most of them have gone towards the United States, towards Colombia, towards the rest of Latin America. And thank God, because we couldn't handle much more than we are presently handling. So I say up to this point, I think we haven't done too badly, but there's a lot still to be managed, and we have to be careful because there's also the other aspect of it, which I think most countries are concerned about, which is that you do get a criminal element that comes along with this. You have human trafficking, you have criminal elements, you have a lot of criminal gangs in Venezuela, not far from us out here, that are involved in all kinds of nefarious activities and so forth. And we have to be careful in terms of who we allow come here. In most cases,
the question came primarily because of the court matter that was really the judgment that was recently handed down. And while we've managed the physical accommodation, as you said, pretty well, we don't see a lot of Venezuelans sleeping on the street. They've integrated into the workplace, the ones that are legally registered. That is, there's education and healthcare at a basic level. Because of the transition emergency period when the Venezuelans started coming to TNT, there are some who are saying we need a more formalized migration policy where that is concerned.
Well, you need legislation. I don't think we have legislation that governs it.
Yes, well, the problem there is that we have signed the Geneva Agreement, but we have never passed it into domestic law, which is to make it very clear as to what the policy should be. So, we have a situation where the government can always say, well, we have not passed this thing into law, so therefore we are not forced in any way to recognize these people as asylum seekers. So this is what happens right now. What most people say, well, you have to be very clear. You have to pass domestic law and decide clearly who you recognize and who you do not recognize. So there's a bit of a kind of ambiguity here, which I think we need to resolve and make it very clear. I see Europe right now is looking at this thing again and trying to see how they can resolve the matter because they're too in that situation. They're realizing that a whole lot of people are just turning up on their borders, requesting asylum status, and they are, in fact, economic migrants, and they can't really support these people. The economy can't really bear all these people coming in, and as a result, they need to take a second look at the Geneva Agreement. So you do have other countries around the world that are concerned about that, so that we are not alone in that regard. But we need to make our position much clearer. As I said, we've done some of that by cancelling the visa arrangement and forcing Venezuelans to have a visa before they come here and so on. So in that way, we'll be trying to deal with it. But it's not a very difficult. It's a pretty difficult issue, and I think we need to really begin to look and see what other countries are doing, how internationally they're trying to resolve it. We cannot allow, for example, the United Nations to just dictate to us and say that, you have signed the Geneva Agreement and this is what you should do. And you should accept everybody that turns up on your border who claim that they are an asylum seeker. I think that is not acceptable. As a small country like this, we have our problems and we can't just easily accept anybody that turns up on our border like that. So that is what I would say essentially about this. We still have some
inordinate numbers because you really just can't have an infinite amount of options for persons saying and there may be economic migrants and under strife in their countries, but there's a limit to what any country can take in addition to providing properly for their own citizens. Yes,
certainly yes. Yeah, well, we see that. We see the Americans in that same situation on the southern border. They're trying to grapple with it by, using COVID regulations to try to deal with it, to send back the migrants, and it's causing a lot of problems. In fact, it's the number one issue that is emerging in the United States that will determine political support, because the Americans are now coming on very strong in terms of a stronger border policy. They want, less and less migrants coming across that border. They tend to think the governments are not strong enough, or the Biden government is not strong enough in terms of dealing with migrants and so forth. So migration is a big issue all over the world. I mean, these countries have to deal. Just think about, what the Americans have to deal with the southern border. You have thousands, if not millions, of people trying to get across that border. And, they're looking for some kind of help to be able to settle in the United States, and you have to deal with that. It's not a very easy.
But in a kind of way, that's why the Monroe Doctrine came around, because the only way to really substantively deal with migrants is the equity and economics of your neighbor and how they resolve their problems, which will affect the migrant outflow to wherever you are going. Because human beings have been migrant nomadic populations for centuries. Something is bad in one area, human beings have moved. We have now created borders over hundreds and hundreds of years, but people will cross those borders once they are suffering where they are. That's the reality. And that's what we are dealing with in a modern 21st century context. People have problems. They're going to cross borders. They don't care. They need to survive, and they are going to cross.
Yes, but it's the right of the nation to decide whether they want to accept them or
and
not.
They will still cross because no country can prevent 100% people crossing. And people are going to cross. So substantively, you have to have some level of intelligence with how you deal with the problem, and ignoring it and not having legislation in place is not one of it. And because we are...
The countries do have, for example, the Americans are trying in some way, working with the Central American countries and with some of the other countries to try to promote development in some way to stop these people from coming there. Development, as we know, is a long-term process. Same thing with Africa. You have the European countries trying the same thing. I mean, it's a long-term process. It's not going to stop all the migrants who are fleeing from economic difficulty and from climate change and all of that thing from coming. Now you have to decide how you handle that, and the way you handle that is why you send them back as they come right now. I mean, I look at all of these people who are trying to cross the Mediterranean, and even here in this hemisphere, you have all these migrants who are running from Cuba and from Haiti. How many of them actually die every day trying to make that crossing to Miami? There are thousands of them that we don't hear about that, and the thing is that while you're sympathetic to their condition, you have to realize that there's only so many you can take. So the others, you have to send them back. What the Americans are doing is, okay, if they get in through the border, they take them and they put them on a plane and they fly them back to Venezuela or to Haiti or to wherever, and they send them back. This is what they're doing right now. They're sending back as many migrants who come across the border as those who, as it's a very... put it like this, I don't know exactly in a net sense how many of them actually get into the country. For instance, you have on a daily basis how many migrants they are sending back as compared to those that are coming in. So I don't know what the net migration figure is, but it's certainly not what is crossing the border every day. It's much less than that. There are plane loads and plane loads. Right now, for example, in the arrangement with Venezuela, Biden is has worked out with the Venezuelan government an arrangement to send plane loads of these migrants, these Venezuelan migrants, back to Venezuela. So every day you have plane loads going back to Venezuela, taking back migrants who are trying to cross the southern border into the United States. And I think, you have to understand the plight of countries. We would do the same thing in Trinidad if we are faced with that kind of situation. We can't accept a whole lot of migrants that we cannot handle. And this is what nation states are about. We understand the problem. We understand why people are coming, but what do you do? You can't accept them because you don't have the means to really deal with that. So that you have to, in a way, kind of defend your nationals, and your nationals in any way will not allow you to really go that route. So that's the dilemma you're in here. And I think one has to understand. I see the British are trying to do all sorts of things to try to stop this migrant flow. They've been talking about sending these migrants to Rwanda, although the court has stopped them, the European court, and I think the British Supreme Court may have stopped them from doing it. I don't know where they are.
The Supreme Court did stop them. The British Supreme Court said it was unconstitutional.
Right. But they're trying to find a way. I see right now they're building barges of a kind of camp or something like that. They're putting thousands of the migrants on barges on the sea, and then from there sending them back across to the home country or to back across into France or wherever and so forth. And this is what it has come to, because they cannot actually, deal with all of these migrants that are coming. They are coming and they're going to disrupt their society,
It can't be infinite. Dr. Gonzalez, we are out of time, but it has been an absolute pleasure discussing these issues with you. And we hope to have you on more regularly. I'd appreciate that. Thank you so much for being with us.
It's my pleasure, yes. Thank you very much, yes.
Thank you so much.
That was Dr. Anthony Gonzalez, UE's international relation expert, talking about Venezuela, Guyana, TNT, and the world. You all have a wonderful day and be safe out there.
Yeah, so, all right, so have a fantastic day, whatever you do. And remember to smile and laugh. It's great for your health.